Hey everyone, this is Amanda Moore from the Angelman Syndrome Foundation, and you're listening to the ASF podcast, the show that explains everything you want to know about Angelman Syndrome. We're so excited you're here, and we hope you enjoy the show. I am so excited today that our Family Support Director, Kathryn Ely, will be taking over the Angelman Syndrome podcast. Kathryn is amazing and works so hard for our families, and also has Stetson, who lives with Angelman Syndrome, so she understands this journey. And in today's episode, she will be exploring the experience of our adult housing champions who have adults living with Angelman Syndrome outside the family home. We know that every family's journey is unique, and we recognize not all individuals have the opportunity to live outside the home. And for many families, the decision to keep their loved ones at home is the right one for them. Our goal is to share stories, resources, and perspectives that highlight what life can look like in a different setting. By doing so, we hope to provide information and encouragement that may be helpful as families consider the many possibilities for adulthood with Angelman syndrome. Enjoy the podcast.
Hi, hello. Thank you so much for being on our ASF podcast. We are excited to welcome this group today. Today we're going to be talking about, I think, something that every parent of a loved one with Angelman syndrome, every parent of a loved one with the intellectual disability thinks about: where will my child live when they grow up? I know for families of individuals with Angelman syndrome, this comes with additional considerations. There are a variety of creative and supportive housing models out there to ensure adults with AS thrive in supportive and fun and safe environments. So our guests today are going to share how to navigate some of these big situations and decisions, and how they found the best setup for their loved one with AS, how they created their best setup for their loved one with AS, so that their adults can live with grace and independence and support. We have launched this wonderful new campaign called AS Grows Up, and we are just thrilled to have our guests here today who are part of this campaign and our AS adult housing champions. So we are gonna welcome our guests, and we are gonna open the introductions. We're excited to listen to you all and to hear your stories, and know that you make such an impact on the AS community right now as we really try to focus on adults. So Amy, do you mind sharing your story or introduce yourself real quick for us?
Sure. Thank you, Kathryn, and thank you for this initiative. I think it's an incredibly important conversation to have, and I'm excited to be a part of it. So my name is Amy Gerard Crush, and I live in Concord, New Hampshire with my husband, Chuck Crush. My daughter, Allie Gerard, lives here with us in Concord, New Hampshire in our home. And we are currently in the exploration process of looking at different housing arrangements for when she makes that transition after age 22, when she ages out of the school system.
Great. Thank you so much. And how old did you say, Allie?
She is 18.
Okay, so you are new on this housing journey. Well, thank you. You know, there's going to be a ton of families who are right there with you. Linda, do you mind sharing, introducing yourself?
Okay, I'm Linda Yoakum. I live outside of Chicago in Naperville, one of the suburbs. I have a son who is 38. His name is Billy, with Angelman syndrome. And he has been living in his own home since October of 2019. So he did lockdown in his home with weekends. That can be later on, another story for later. But he's been there for now 5, going on 6 years. There are other young men with Angelman syndrome in his home, and it's located in another Chicago suburb about 11 miles from me.
Wonderful. We probably could do a whole other podcast series on how y'all navigated lockdown and COVID away from home. Steve, do you mind introducing yourself and sharing your story?
Sure. My name's Steve Katz. I was the Angelman Syndrome Foundation president from 1999 to 2003. My son Seth is 37 years old. He has been in a group home since 2009. And when he turned 22, shortly after he turned 22, and after he aged out of the school system, he lives with three other adult men who all have intellectual disabilities, and there's 24-hour care in the house, and he's very happy and settled in where he is.
I love it. Thank you. And it's a long time for him to be in the same place. So I'd love to see, love to hear how all of the years have been there. Again, probably another podcast that we could do for sure. Robin, do you mind telling us a little bit about Paige and your story?
Hey, I'm Robin Wilkerson, and we live in Oxford, Mississippi, which happens to be the home of the University of Mississippi. Paige, my daughter with Angelman syndrome, is 31 years old, and she has lived in a 24/7 supervised living home since 2018. The home that she lives in is 3 miles from us. She lives in a typical neighborhood and a typical home. She has 3 other ladies who share her home with her, and she has direct support staff 24/7. And then Monday through Friday, she goes to a day center during the day.
Love it. And how long has she been at her home?
She's been there almost 7 years.
Incredible. So you also navigated lockdown over there. And so the 3 of y'all that have navigated that. Heather, can you share your story with us?
My name is Heather Evans. I'm in Frederick, Maryland, although I raised my family in West Virginia, but I grew up in Maryland, so I came back to Maryland when my son got a little older. Chance is my son. He's 22 years old. He transitioned to full-time school residential placement at the age of 15, and then transitioned from school residential to adult residential a year ago next week. And he currently lives in a 2-bedroom apartment with another young man with an intellectual disability. They each have their own one-on-one staff, 24/7. He attends a day program 5 days a week, and 3 of those 5 days he's out in the community doing Meals on Wheels and delivering meals to seniors in his community. And then Fridays are their fun day where they get to go do other fun things besides volunteer work. So he's very happy there. It's been a tremendously beautiful experience. It's really cool seeing him live his own best life. So we're really thrilled.
Infinite life. And how long has he been there?
So it'll be a year next week. He did his transition to full-time school residential was in 2018.
Okay.
When he was 15 years old, and then his full-time adult residential has been a year.
That's I would love to hear more about that program that they have set up there. So again, another side podcast that we could do before. Siobhan, would you like to share yours?
Sure. I'm Siobhan Sargent, and I live in Beverly, Massachusetts. And I have a beautiful 23-year-old named Samantha with deletion-positive Angelman syndrome. And when she was 22, we worked with a transition coordinator from the state of Massachusetts. And a need was identified for a group home for these 4 amazing young ladies that were going to the same school that all kind of knew each other and were around the same age. And so we were able to lobby the Needs Center organization to create a home for these 4 young ladies. And so they purchased a home, and it's a beautiful 3,000 square foot home in a very nice neighborhood. And so Samantha's been living there for about a year now with the 3 other girls that she went to school with. And she also attends a day program with one of her roommates. And it's very social. They do activities together. They go on vacation together. And there's also a very strong emphasis on community. And they try to go out into the community every day at the day program, even if it's just to eat lunch.
I love that. I love all of the community involvement that we're hearing. And Jackie, can you share your situation?
Sure. My name is Jackie Golden. I live in Lutherville, Maryland. We've done this, we have a sort of unique story. We've actually been doing this for 25 years. And we have what's called a microboard, meaning we are the agency, just like a Chimes or an Easter Seals. First, I should say my son is Joshua Golden. He's 43. I'm sorry to leave that out. Deletion positive. So he needs 24/7 care, which I have a lot to share on finding staff as well as keeping staff. And we have a unique situation. We actually gave our home to Joshua. We moved out. And then as he got older, and he's been doing this since, like I said, 18, as we got older, I should say, we built an addition for us to move in with him, which is sort of not in with him, a separate apartment to him. As a microboard, you get the funds directly. You get to design. It's very creative. It's a wonderful setup. He has, like I said, 24/7 support. He has 5 staff. He has a nurse, and he also has some extra nursing staff to help him when he goes out doing his errands. His day program is what we create, not a separate day. It's all part of Joshua's House Incorporated. That's his agency. And we do things like errands, like Instacart kind of thing. But it's for family and individuals that he knows, and it's close people that he gets to. So you might see him at the grocery store. You might see him we have Amish market. You might see him anywhere doing his errand. You might see him Home Depot. You might see him at a doctor's office because he's rode with someone to a doctor's visit. Anyway, he does a lot of things. He's very busy. Yeah. He has a service dog, and he lives by himself. However, he's very busy.
I love it. I love the independence that you are all creating for your loved one with AS. I love hearing your stories and just your passion for being able to share it. This is a hard journey, and I think a lot of people feel just overwhelmed when you start to think of it. For those of you who don't know, my son is Stetson and he is 12. And this is something because I have been lucky enough to work with the Angelman Syndrome Foundation as the family resource director. I have been plugged in with this wonderful adult community for quite a few years. And I think my husband and I started thinking about Stetson's future 4 years ago because of your stories and knowing that, wow, the time just flies by. And before we know it, our children are 18 and our lives with loved ones with AS look so different. Graduation doesn't have to be at 18. Going off to college can look different. All these things just look different. And how do we navigate that? And I love that you guys are so willing to have this open conversation because it's difficult. It's something that I think a lot of parents, you don't want to look too far into the future for fear of what that could look like. And also you are trying really hard to survive your day-to-day life, especially in those newly diagnosed years or in those transition periods or in puberty and all of that comes with it. So thank you so much just for sharing your story and being willing to communicate with others. And that's what our goal is here, is that hopefully with this AS Grows Up campaign that you can really be a champion and make others feel comfortable and know that, we can do this. We can all do this, but it's hard to do it alone, right? I think we've all learned that. Leaving the home, leaving the family home or staying in the family home, how do we determine what is best for each adult with AS when it comes time to explore residential options? I know a lot of you guys have dealt with all of the various impacts that Angelman syndrome has, but what were some of when you started to think about some really long-term options, how did you go through how AS impacts our life, lack of sleep, nonverbal mobility, safety? What were your top concerns when you started to think about that?
One of the things that helped us was actually Josh. His health determined where we were going. Mm-hmm. He had horrible life-threatening seizures. So what we forced to do was, he was in a pediatric hospital where we needed some help. We had to change a lot of policies, a lot of laws, a lot of things that made didn't make sense back then because it was a long time ago. And then from that, back then, you basically couldn't have your child living with you because they wouldn't give you help, which is crazy. So we had to change all of that. Not to take on, but he was worth every step. And we knew that he needed independence. We've had a lot of models. We went to a group home. Not a success, no different than a pediatric hospital, was horrible scenario. And again, we've had him home. We've had him in a lot of different environments. We've had him living with a friend, group home. We've had with a caregiver and him living together. I think right now it's sort of the best of the best both worlds because I'm very close. I can just drop down and see him at his apartment, or I drop down and he's not home. That's great too. So it's dealing with a lot of things, and Joshua pushed us to a lot of things. So we have a little bit different story.
Sure.
I mean, he really pushed us to make good decisions.
Jackie, I saw you, I think it was you that delivered the session in St. Louis at the Angelman Foundation conference.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure, because I remember microboards, talking about microboards. I don't know, did you do a session in St. Louis? Did you?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, I remember that session too.
And I think Chance was probably 8 years old at the time, maybe 7. And the advice I got was start planning 10 years out. And so then I started thinking about things. And for me, what the decision, like what to do for Chance, it came down to behaviors. He has pretty significantly challenging behaviors. And so the decision to move into school placement was to try and get that under control so that when he transitioned to adult residential, I had more options. And originally I thought, I'm gonna do a microboard. I'm gonna do what Jackie did, and I'm gonna figure that out. And I actually bought a house in West Virginia, gutted it, renovated it, tried to make it accessible. We were going to staff it. Staffing crises in that state made it really impossible to do. Mm-hmm. So I had always planned to move back to my home state of Maryland. I just did it a whole lot sooner. And Chance was in a school placement in Maryland. He attended Benedictine School, which is a very great school on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. And that experience really positioned him well to be able to transition very easily into adult placement. But for me, the number one factor in exploring options and finally choosing the right option for him was which agency, which staff, which setup would best be able to support the behavioral challenges, because he's very healthy. He can ambulate. He doesn't have seizures. He doesn't have a feeding tube. Like we don't struggle with the health problems that a lot of Angelman adults do. We struggle more with the behavioral challenges. So that was it for us.
Behaviors were a problem for us too. This is Linda, by the way. And his placement now has been very successful, but we had tried 2 other placements prior that were both failures because of the behavior issues. And again, health is not an issue, but the behaviors were. And I think one of the reasons we were successful this time is that it is an agency that staffs the home, and it's the same agency that he has been going to date program with since he was 22, so they know him well. They were able to get documentation for the need for one-on-one because of the behaviors. That documentation and one-on-one aid carried over to residential when it happened. But the summer that we were in the process of planning this and knew it was going to happen was the summer that the ASF conference was in Louisville. And since we're in Chicago, which is not, an easy drive, but it's drivable, the agency sent the head of day programming, the head of residential, and the person who would be and still is his house manager. They sent them all to the ASF conference that year to learn about Angelman, and now have the behavior modules on the ASF website as part of the training program for any staff that works in that house. So the agency was very attuned not only to Billy and his behaviors, but how this carries out to other people. And the Angelmen that were in the school system at the time, they were looking, forward in the years and what their population was going to be like, and really invested themselves in helping control the behaviors. And it made a huge difference and made this third placement extremely successful.
What a great idea to share the modules with your agency.
Can I add something to that? Behavior issues are critical for our kids. I don't care what the situation, you have these behaviors in, and I'm just going through the person-centered planning process with the state right now, and our biggest issue is behavior plan. One of the things I've known over the many years we've dealt with this is dealing with, yeah, exactly.
Just did this week.
Yes, exactly. We've been working on it for a long time, but anyway, it's we don't have a behavior specialist, and you know why? Because we found out behavior specialists have not a clue what Angelman syndrome is. Yeah. They don't have a clue on how to deal with someone with Angelman syndrome. The best behaviors in the world with for Angelman syndrome is the Angelman Syndrome Foundation. They have the best information on behavior, especially, and that's where I've gotten all my knowledge, all my help, and understand behaviors. And my son's behaviors disappeared when he had staff that listened to Angelman syndrome techniques. They disappeared when they had supports from everybody, doctors that listened to him, and as well as understand his communication. He doesn't use a communication board. He doesn't use picture exchange. He developed his own communication method. And he showed us early on, he didn't want anything but his way of communicating. And I can remember the day, it was picture exchange. I was forcing picture exchange. He was young. Do the picture exchange, Joshua, here's grapes, whatever, teaching him that process. He took the picture and literally picked it up and threw it right in my face. And I'm like, I get it, Joshua. That's clear communication. I get it. And that's key, I think, to the behavior issues is getting the right mixture of people. I will say this, staffing is critical as well. Whether it's a live-in pass or living with a best friend, living in a group home, all that is critical because, for instance, Joshua's staff, first staff he had with them for 18 years. And like I said, we have 5 staff. We've had one for 12 years, one for 10 years, and several for 7. And I think the most recent were 7. Staff are consistent, and it's mainly because we make the home as much their home as Joshua's, if that makes sense. If their kids are off from school, like one of my staff's kids are here today, with my son. They come. We can set up supports that are very unique and help Joshua. He loves it when the kids come over. He loves it when they're going out to pick them up from their school. All those things are things he loves to do and part of his life. So it's not sit down, okay, today Joshua's going to do this. It's very spontaneous, and like the person-centered plan, the biggest barrier is finding those behavior process that doesn't come in a traditional behavior plan. And it's complex, but once you get it right, the behaviors basically disappear. And that's what I found for Joshua, at least. His behaviors improved so much with the right combination. And that's why when we were trying different things, the group home failed, because it was the worst thing they didn't do is they modeled a typical medical model, not a listening model. And that's what he needs. So it made a big difference.
Yeah, I think that's great to hear, because we, even as families with younger children who are hopefully listening in, communication is always something that is so pushed and so valuable, and understanding what communication looks like with an individual with AS, because it's all across the board, right? All of our loved ones with AS have different styles of communicating. But I do want to say, the reason that the ASF has the resources that we do is because of you all, because you have been the ones that stepped in from the get-go as young families and as young newly diagnosed and started this. And Steve, you can add to this just from your experience of being president on the board and all of it, just everything that was put in to the resources that ASF had is because of the adult community that we have today. And we hope everyone understands that. And now as the adult families are facing, new challenges, possibly with living situations and long-term we're coming back to you all again, and we're coming back to say, okay, now what? Now what are we doing? And what is working? Because we have such a great panel here and such a wide variety.
Hey guys, it's Amanda here. As you know, we're here for you, our community. If you have questions about any topics we can discuss in our podcast, or if you have ideas for future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. All you need to do is email me at dearamanda@angelman.org. Thank you so much for listening and your continued support of the Angelman Syndrome Foundation.
Steve, I think you were going to say something about your
Yes.
plan or how you use it. Yeah.
So I wanted to say a couple things. First of all, I think that the most important thing is to plan ahead. We started planning for Seth to move out when he was 16. And you have to be very squeaky. You can't be the quiet one to let it happen. You have to take charge and really make it happen for you. We actually went ahead and sued our county because they had placements, but they weren't going to place them. The couple things. The timing occurred for us because both of his brothers graduated, one from college, one from high school, in the same year. He graduated from high school and aged out of the system. So it was a natural transition time. The other two kids were moving out of the house, and it was time for him to move out of the house. And so he wanted to, and it was very beneficial for him. But it was a lot of effort. The placement that he's in is a very comfortable situation for him. It is a little bit far for us. We can't. He lives about 45 minutes away. We can't just drop in. We see him every week, but we can't see him more often than that because it's 45 minutes out and 45 minutes back. You have to dedicate at least 2 hours, even to spend a half hour with him. So it's a little bit of a situation. We tried to move him closer, but he didn't do well and we had to put him back where he was. There was one other point I wanted to make. It is very dependent on the staffing. We've had good staffing, we've had bad staffing, but we don't have to be the one to hire the staff. We just have to make sure that we advocate for Seth because he can't advocate for himself.
I think it's interesting you mentioned that you were 45 minutes away. I think that's a good point too. Like when we were choosing a placement for Chance, we were looking for the right placement for him, not necessarily the proximity or the right placement for us. And that sometimes requires a sacrifice. We're about 40 minutes away from Chance as well, which is, has its challenges, but the placement is perfect for him.
Yeah, I feel like, everything y'all bring up, I feel like we could do a whole series on, people who are moving to find the right spot or do that work. But Amy, you want to chime in and add anything?
Thank you so much. And something that someone had said about ASF really hit home for me because while I said in the beginning that this is our initial look into exploring housing options, we've really actually been doing this for quite a while, really ever since Allie was about 3 or 2.5. And we were introduced to Dr. Stephen Calculator, who luckily was in our backyard with UNH. And Dr. Calculator really was the first one to talk to us about presumption of competence or presumption of potential, which has been newly updated, I think. But inclusive education, presuming that your child with Angelman syndrome really has the capability of doing things that you may not think that they're able to do. They just need to be supported in doing those things and really helping us to push for inclusive education, meaning meaningful inclusive education with supports. And so that has led Allie and us on a path where she really is very involved with her community. She's very involved with the school. She has been part of Unified Cheer. And the reason I'm talking about all of this is because it lends itself to a perfect and natural discussion about housing. So when you look at developing a housing situation for your person with AS or seeing what's available, you want to look at how their journey has been going for the last 18 or so, or what stage your child is in, and look at what their strengths are, look at what their needs are, looking at what their abilities are and their preferences. And so for Allie, one of her strengths has been her socialization and being with her peers and going out to concerts, being supported by staff. The needs are great though, because she does have Angelman syndrome, which requires one-on-one support for her ADLs, and other things like that. So you just want to take a look at where your child is and take a look at where the best fit might be. But abilities, just looking at what your child is able to do and where they need support and the preferences. Really, what does their day look like? Where do they shine? And how can they have that, those opportunities within the community and be supported? So to really try to look at this with a blank slate and just, first of all, dream, come up with some opportunities about where you think that your child would be best fit, and then you can backfill in the places where they might be some opportunities within the community.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
want to say ditto to that. Amy made some great points because that is so important to listen to their skills and successes. I don't think people realize how much they do know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I was saying. The behaviors always get it wrong because they see him as like a 2-year-old, and he's not 2, and he's understanding everything you're saying to him, and just talk down to him like he doesn't understand or totally ignoring him. You're not going to do it. First of all, he's going to let you know you're ignoring him, and you need to speak to him.
Exactly.
So it's really important for you to know their skills in life and enjoyment in life. I mean, to isolate them into a bad scenario is horrible, and that's why certain situations didn't work for Josh. The group home didn't work, and the medical model didn't work. He needed to have a life, a real life, not a pretend life, a life where he decides, so I'm going to go swimming today. I'm going to go doing this today. And he does decide those things. And it's not because he can speak, and not because he's, if you look at him, he's got toys everywhere. His big, in my house, I have chairs and stuff. In Joshua's house, he has 5 toy boxes, all over the place. And that's how he wants to live, So I'm listening to him. He's giving me direction. He's giving his staff direction. And that staff must listen to them. If they don't, they're out the door. And Joshua has fired people before. It's not just us hiring him. He has fired people. He tells you he doesn't like the person, they're out. All he has to do is say, I don't like him, they're out the door.
Yeah.
So
I think it's so
absolutely
important to understand and to realize that they, have finding staff that recognizes the need and the communication, but treating them like people. And we have really tried to make sure to help with the training that everyone understands, people centered first. Like that is the most important thing that we could do from here. And I know Robin and then I think Siobhan, you both want to chime in. So Robin, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I just wanted to share that how we came about with making the decision on when and where with Paige. I think we need to bring attention to the fact it's a real emotional decision.
yes.
And my husband and I weren't quite ready to make the transition with Paige yet. However, her brothers were asking what the long-term plan was. And they're at the stage that they're raising families, and they were concerned what happens when something happens with Paige's daddy and me. And so once they started raising the question, we said, we need to get more serious about this. And so Paige was already going to a day program. She'd already had respite at home. And so we were already comfortable with the folks that were just starting supervised living homes here in Oxford. And so we decided that the best thing to do was to do what was best for all three of our children. And I get emotional when I talk about it because really, my husband and I could have taken care of Paige longer. We still could, really. And it's been the hardest thing we've ever done, and it's still the hardest thing we've ever done. And Paige, like all of your adult children we've all been through a lot as families with this. And the fact that it was hard made it hard. And then how we ended up making the decision is our son's piece was as important as Paige's piece. And so that's what instigated all of this. And so it was the right thing for Paige. She's more independent. But the reason we started the decision was honestly, we had a long-term plan, but the reason we went ahead and did it when Paige was 24 was because her brothers were concerned about what was going to happen, and we want to transition her. We didn't want us to be gone and her not know who our caregivers were going to be, and our sons have to deal with this. So I just wanted to share a little bit about siblings and about how emotional a decision this is. Even 7 years after we made the decision, it's still hard.
Thank you for sharing that, Robin.
Yeah, I think, and one thing, Siobhan, we'll get to you. One thing I want to make sure everyone hears is there's no wrong decision, right? If your individual with AS comes first and you are putting yourself first as well, like there's so much controversy, and you hear a lot, I would never of this. I would never do this as a parent. I mean, totally different example. I said I would never give my kids Lunchables, right? And they're eating Lunchables at my mom's house right now. This is where I'm saying, like, you as a parent, you can never say never because you don't know what your situation will bring. And Robin, you and I have talked about the fact that, like, you live in Oxford, Mississippi. Who would have thought there would be such a wonderful position for Paige there? I do think I would expect, Siobhan, for you to have a great situation in Massachusetts, but I don't know what your road to getting that was. But you just never know what you don't know. And so with that, Siobhan, would you like to share your portion?
Sure. I just wanted to piggyback on a couple of things that people said about the ASF. First of all, we have the wonderful Dr. Keary. He's really phenomenal. And you're right, so lucky to live in Massachusetts because he's just our regular psychiatrist. And what's cool is staff from both the day program and the residents will attend the visits with us. And that's really powerful for us because I think, what he says and what he thinks carries a lot of weight. He's honestly a bit of a rock star in Massachusetts.
Across the country. We are big fans of Dr. Keary around here.
I mean, just like outside of the Angelman world, he's got quite a good reputation out here, and I think a lot of the providers are excited when we have an appointment with him. They're excited to meet with him, so that's been really great. And he'll ask some tough questions. He'll put it right on them and say, "Are you using her EAC?" And I sit back and I listen, and I'm like, "This is great." So I very much take advantage of the resources that they have in place around him, if anyone hasn't already, because he's phenomenal. And I also want to mention that I'd like to talk a little bit about the transition because that's kind of what's fresh in my mind and that's what I've dealt with. I worked really, really hard on the transition. It was exhausting. I almost don't think I could go through it again, but I think it was essential to our success for Samantha. I did use partially the ASF transition planning guide that's available on the website, and I kind of just amended it and made it my own. And we did use a behaviorist. And what's interesting is the behaviorist was provided by the school system, but that person never actually met Samantha. That person was for me. That person was to support me in doing the work to transition Samantha. And that's how we used it. And she would come out every week while Samantha was at school, and we would sit down and talk about everything we were doing and talk about new strategies. And I think a really important strategy was the use of social stories. I'm a firm believer in social stories and other narrative supports. And I did make Samantha some custom stories about moving into the house and what it might be like and what some concerns were around that. And I think that was a very important part of our transition, was just the planning and all the work that went into it. And it went on for about a year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one thing I think of when everyone's talking about, our kids is that my daughter is no different than any 23-year-old. She wants to be with her peers. Mm-hmm. I'm boring.
Yep.
She doesn't want to hang out with me anymore.
1,000%. I get it.
When she was still home, she would be in her room on the weekends, in her bed. I'm like, you want to come out here? You want to watch a movie with me? No. And we'd start to go and visit family, and she'd be kind of bored and want to go home. And I just recognized that she was kind of bored at home, and I think she really needed to be with her peers, and that was a big piece in our decision to transition her.
Siobhan,
I'll take that one step further, just real quick. Joshua was actually pushed me out of the house.
Same with Jan. I'll wave and push out the door. You're done.
I'm ready to go home.
Same.
Yeah, Billy is so ready to go back on Sunday afternoons. He races to the car when I say it's time to go. Forget the coat in the middle of winter, forget the med bag. He's ready to go. He loves his home.
One of the things that we did a couple of years ago to really start this transition process is to start Allie on an overnight camp for the summer. So she goes to Camp Snowmo once a year. Last year she went for 2 weeks, and this year she'll be going for 2 weeks. So I think that really helps her to understand and to feel safe and secure that there are other people that can take care of her. And what great experiences she gets to do archery and boating and swimming and all kinds of things that, you're right, Siobhan, we're boring and sometimes we just have the time or energy to do. So, to start small like that, I think is really helpful too.
A great idea, Amy. And I think, we have to talk about anxiety and Angelman syndrome. And for Chance, it got, pretty significant in his teenage years and early adult years. And one of the reasons why I transitioned him to school placement, not just for the behaviors, but was for most of his life, I was it. I was the only one that he would allow to do things. I was a single mom with 3 little boys. Chance was my oldest. So bathing, nail clipping, doctor's appointments, all the things. It was just me. Nobody else could comb his hair. Nobody else could do, his father, yes, to a certain extent, but for the most part, it was me. And I was like, at some point, God willing, he will outlive me. And I have to get him to a point where he will trust somebody else to do those things for him. And so that was part of the reason also for the transition. But starting small and doing camps, what a great idea to get them started when they're young, get them used to that for sure.
I was going to kind of tie transition in with behaviors and anxiety, because I found in this process that to eliminate the behaviors, I need to reduce the anxiety. And that happens if 2 of 3 items match: location, activity, and person. So I can put him in a new location, like a group home, if he's with an aide that he's familiar with through the day program or through partial residence in our house, and the activities familiar, like eating a meal or taking a shower. And that can be, we built on those 3 things over the 3 weeks prior to the boys move in to the house. They started with The 7 to 3 shift started in our house at 7 in the morning, the residential, and I taught her how to do Billy's breakfast, how to get him showered, how to dress him. So Billy had familiar activities in a familiar location, his own home, but now with a new person, an aide that he knew. So when that transitioned to the house, he had a new location, but the activities were familiar and the person was familiar. We started with just afternoons at the house after the day program, and then that included supper after the day program. And to the point where after supper, the week of Halloween, they went to bed that Monday night. So that the time at the house was gradual, they were used to the staff, and we were only, by the end, the only activity we were introducing that was new was sleeping at the house. They were familiar with the activity, they were now familiar with the location, and even the activity was somewhat familiar, but new location for it. So making sure those three things, and I look back on his life and thinking, well, no wonder that was a failure. All three things were new. Nobody he could communicate with. It was a new activity, so he didn't know what to expect, and he'd never been to that place before. So I found that those three things are the key: activity, person, and location.
Great advice, and things that I think you could even apply not just to adult housing and that,
Oh no,
but
everybody.
everyday life, right? Like I can adapt that in school transitions, vacations, all of it. So I love that. I want to transition to a little bit to, if you guys could give your advice to others, what would be one thing, like, or what do you wish you had known going into this chapter of long-term planning? What do you wish you had by you as you guys started this? And I'm going to start with Siobhan, because I know you have an exit soon. So if you don't mind, sorry to put you on the spot, but I would like to know what's yours, and then everyone else can kind of chime in. We can go as we go.
I think if you plan correctly and you work hard, the transition can go smoothly. It really can. It's putting in the work. And I think a big part of that for people with Angelman syndrome is narrative supports.
I also think it's important, and all of y'all have touched on this, and I still want all of your ideas, but some of you have changed what you were planning or changed what you did. And I think it's important to recognize that just like any individual, let's say neurotypical kid goes off to college, it might not be the right fit. And if it's not the right fit, it is okay to take a step back and to reevaluate. And Jackie, you've talked about how you did did quite a few times. And I think it's important for the younger generation, the younger population, to know that you might luck out. Robin, you guys had a great situation that lined up with Paige, but that might not be the norm. And that doesn't mean that that's just where you're stuck. So good job. And I love
that's what I wanted to say is the fact that I would have liked to know right from the start, this wasn't it. This is wasn't, because I think that was the worst thing, was knowing that, oh my God, his whole life is horrible. It's going to be horrible the rest of his life. Knowing that you can change that, and knowing that you have a plan, knowing that this isn't the last stop, and knowing that you can change whatever. It's hard work. All of it's hard work. And it's not easy, and no one's going to do it for you. I wish people know that it's not easy, and make sure, like Sharon said, it's a lot of planning, a lot of efforts, but knowing it's worth the outcome, it's great when you get it right. And knowing that you can get it right is very helpful.
Yes, that's a key piece, is knowing that you can do this. Yeah. What else? Who else has?
I think if you, it helps to know, and what I wish I'd known is it's going to hurt no matter when you do it, emotionally. And so to start the planning doesn't mean you have to do it right then, right? Sometimes I think denial is such a wonderful coping mechanism that, I, for one, might keep putting it off because I don't want to, it's scary and it's emotional. And I think if I'd known early on, it doesn't matter if I'm 82 or if I'm 62 or how old Paige is. It's going to be hard no matter when I do it. It's even hard if you planned. Everybody would agree with that. No matter what plans you make, it's still difficult and emotional. So I think that helps on the front end if you're thinking we all know it's scary. It is scary and it is emotional. And then what everybody said, the planning ahead, I wish I'd had Paige go to overnight camps when she went to her home to live. She'd never been away from us. And much like Heather's sharing, Paige only lets me do things unless I'm not here, and then anybody could do it. But if I'm here, I'm the one who does it. And we're really scared on how Paige was going to take it, given the fact I'd always done everything. She literally even slept with me, right? And so we transitioned her to her home, and Paige did fine. Mm-hmm. She sleeps in her own bed in her own room. When she comes back to our house, she wants to sleep with me. But when she's at her home, she's independent. And I think it's important to think, I know we're all about academics, and I think academics are really important for cognitive growth. But I do wish we'd put a little more effort on the front end on activities of daily living, because the more Paige can do now, the better her living situation. So that's the other thing I wanted to say.
Yeah, when Chance was at Benedictine, that was a big push, was ADLs and just getting prepared for life beyond school. And that was really helpful. I think my my advice, I have a couple, obviously start early. I learned that from Jackie, 10 years out to start planning. You don't have to make the transition, just start planning. Get yourself a good transition coordinator or a champion that can come alongside you in the process. And then know your state. I think for me, like I said, I raised my children in West Virginia. I had a really great school experience there. The politics changed things and cuts changed things, and reimbursement rates in that state were really terrible. And there was a huge staffing crisis. So even though I had long-term plan was to buy and renovate a home, and that's where he was going to live with a roommate and it was going to be staffed, all those plans kind of fell apart when the staffing crisis, changed everything. Would it have been lovely for him to live in the community where, he grew up, where his brothers grew up? Absolutely. Where he's a rock star and a celebrity in town and people I don't even know wave at him and say hi to him. I'm like, I don't know who you are. Like that would have been lovely. But I had to shift gears because I didn't really know what I was getting into long term with reimbursement rates in West Virginia, and I just finally had to pull the plug. So I would say know your state, know what's available in your state, and that's part of the reason why planning early is important, because if you're living in a state where there just aren't good services and your child is only 2 or 3 years old, then maybe it is time to consider moving to a state where the services are better. And I hate to say that because the money should follow the individual, but that's not the way it works. So know your state. And then when you finally get to the time where you're looking for the placement, whether it's a group home, an apartment, building your own, adding an addition, whatever it is, for me, I knew he was going to have his own place. And so we visited lots of agencies that would coordinate care. We visited lots of day programs. We visited lots of apartments, lots of houses. And that gives you a sense of what's available in your region. And then it helps to just make all the visits, do all the visits.
I wanted to piggyback on something that Heather just said. To me, one of the issues that we had, we certainly explored other options. And in fact, like she said, we were looking to buy our own home and renovate it and have Seth move in there. But what happened for us, at least, was financial. I mean, I'm a professional. My wife's a professional, and all of a sudden, the 6 hours a day of school went away, and then there was no more childcare. And it was almost impossible to find childcare. And it's not even childcare; it's adult care. And he went from having 26 hours a week of waiver care to continuing to have 26 hours a week of waiver care, but the 6 hours a day of school went away. And we looked at day programs, and they told us, well, you can do day programs or you can do transportation. So someone else could, but that's all the money that the money will pay for. So we could have had him in a day program where we were driving him every day both ways, and then making sure that he was safe afterwards, which meant one of us would have had to quit our jobs, and that wasn't a practicality for us. What I wish I would have done differently, I think one other thing I wanted to say before that, one of the things that we benefited from was that his supports coordinator didn't change every year. That was part of the issue. He would have a supports coordinator, and they tend to be low-paying jobs. I don't know how they are in other states, but in Pennsylvania, the supports coordinators tend to be pretty low-paying jobs. And the people would come there, and they'd last about 6 months or a year, and they would start working on getting set a transition program, and then they would leave, and then the next person would come, and it would be the same thing. They'd start from the scratch. And once we had somebody who actually lasted 2 years, we were actually able to move the process forward. So that was a big thing for us. Now, what I would have done differently, I probably would have, when he was much younger, started the process of him being more independent, like you were all saying. And I think that now he's a lot. Seth tends to be very lazy. He can do things, but he tends not to, because why feed yourself when other people will feed you? Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, the staff at the group home reinforced that a bit, and that's even though we asked them to let him do it himself. It's just for time and neatness purposes. It's easier for them to do it themselves.
It's such a good point that y'all have all brought up, that I even see with my 12-year-old, is that at times we have probably all felt that we were the only one that could care. We were the only ones who could really do it and do it right. And what a liberating feeling to realize that you're not. Your kids and your adults now, they can rise to this occasion. They can do it. Now, when they come home, like you said, Robin, it might still be you, Siobhan, it might still be you that has to be the one that does it. But giving them or allowing them that opportunity to be independent, to have the social life that every 20, 30, 40-year-old deserves to have is so important. Thank you for
Kathryn,
that.
I wish you could say that like 10 more times and screaming from the ceilings on how important what you just said. Our children, she's still my child, they do rise to the occasion, and they become really good people that, I mean, I honestly say, I wouldn't have, I like Steve's talking about, Paige was too dependent, and now she can do more things. So, Kathryn, what you just said, you need to bottle, and we just need to put it on repeat.
I agree.
I think also, Robin, something that you said really, really struck home for me is that emotional piece of all of this. It is extremely emotional. And I think the hardest thing in life is to hold that fear and that sadness and those negative emotions at the same time that we're holding our excitement of a vision, of possibility, of hope. And I think that if we can learn how to do that for our loved ones with AS and have this vision of what a housing initiative might look like, knowing that it could change over time and probably will and should change over time. But to know that that's okay to hold these two or all of these very big emotions at the same time and have support maneuvering through that is a normal part of the human experience.
I totally agree with all that. It's just incredible to watch independence grow. I mean, it's so cool. Every single day I see growth in what something's done or something's picked up. For instance, he now knows, okay, when staff take him out, they need keys. If it's winter, they need a coat. He needs his backpack. He pulls them all together, throws the keys at them. He's ready to go, and he's at the door. So, I mean, he's telling them, okay, this is what we're doing today, and you're doing it with me. I mean, it's really cool to watch that independence grow. I mean, you never would think or even dream that they could get to that point, but they do, and it's incredible. It's just a great feeling to watch.
Chance is going on his first vacation without any immediate family members at the end of July. I'm incredibly nervous and anxious for all the reasons y'all can imagine. But I'm also thrilled that he's going to have that life experience that just a few years ago I never thought I'd see.
That's wonderful.
That is wonderful.
Well, I think something so important is just y'all. And again, just reiterating that the work that the ASF does is only because of the work that y'all have put in and the work that you're willing to continue to do. And, no one has to volunteer. No one has to say that they're going to sign up to do this, but y'all signing up to be these housing champions, to help others who are walking in this journey. We've already started to get emails in and forward them out to y'all about some people who are, their kids are 14, 15, 16, some are in their 30s, and they just need help and they just need some guidance. And as you all know, sometimes it's just talking it through with someone who has done something similar or something you would never have dreamed of. These situations that y'all have created truly are life-changing for the community, and how you're just willing to share and willing to give your time again in this life is absolutely amazing. And we are just so thankful. And I hope you all know that we are unbelievably thankful for the work that you have done now and in the past, and that we can continue to lean on this community, because we're only as strong as we are together, I feel like. So I wanted to thank you all so much. And if there are no other last remarks, go ahead, Amy.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to, so first of all, thank you for that. That was really wonderful to say. And I also wanted to just talk a little bit about our experience in living in New Hampshire. New Hampshire is a relatively small state, and we have legislators literally in our backyard. We have the availability to really affect change by having one-on-ones with our legislators. And I think that that's really important, because you can affect change. And I think that in every state, there is an opportunity where you can sit down with someone who is in a position to affect change, whether it's a representative or a state senator or the city council person. You have the ability to help affect change. So if there is a living situation that you can envision your child or your loved one with AS to be living in that doesn't exist at the moment, get together with other people that you know, start having conversations, and start creating excitement about a vision. Start meeting with people in power. Don't be afraid to do that, because they are just people and they want to hear from you. And so that's one of the things that I wish that I had done earlier, but I'm doing it now. And I think that that's an incredible, empowering opportunity to have.
Amy, I think
I
that's,
second what you
yeah.
said, Amy, about getting together with other people. This house that Billy's in was a 5-year plan that his mother and I, who are friends, sat down and said, someday we want our boys to live together. How it At the time, we didn't know how it was going to happen or how to do it, but it took 7 years to happen. But it did start with what you said, sitting with other parents and saying, this is what we want now. How do we go about it? So we did have a 5-year plan that just took 7, but we did what you suggested, and it worked.
And that's I have to add, it's important to sort of sometimes grow a thicker skin as you're going through this and talking to legislators, not taking no, and saying that, okay, this is how you can change. And sometimes it means you do the homework on that, not your legislator. Yeah. You take the plan to them. And I mean, that's the only way we got things changed. We changed a lot here. I mean, they didn't do anything. Maryland, when Joshua was small, anything he had for families was a 200, and this is terrible, the word, I hate the word, 200 slots, and you had to be on an event to get care. And that's pathetic. All that had to change, and it took a few parents and advocacy and grab those advocacy groups together, you get a powerful force and it makes a difference. You don't have to do it alone, but you have to get out there and you have to speak up for your child. And it does take reaching out to some of the bigger political and some of the small neighbors next door. It's getting it together and getting it. You have to advocate. It's just important.
And
It's
do it
really
early.
important.
Do it early. I waited too long. I mean, I was meeting with legislators when Chance was 18, 19, 20 years old, and I transitioned a year later. It was too late in West Virginia, but in Maryland, thank you, because you kind of paved the way, because when we moved back to Maryland, it was a whole lot easier, but yeah.
Well, it's still hard in Maryland. It's still hard.
Yeah, it is.
It's not a piece of cake.
Yeah.
And you know that when you're just personal at center planning, you know that. It's hard.
I think we can all agree it's hard everywhere to an extent. There is always roadblocks, but if y'all have shown anything, it's that roadblocks can be moved, they can be pushed aside, and never doubt what a parent will do for their child,
Yes.
despite the age, but however old they might be, it doesn't matter. Well, thank you all again, and we encourage anyone to come onto the ASF website. We encourage you guys to subscribe to this, to go to the AS Grows Up campaign and see our lovely adult champions, housing champions, and feel free to get in touch with each one of them, as they're such a valuable resource that we have in this community right now. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks for listening to the ASF podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to support us, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating or review. And please don't forget to subscribe.